This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening, thanks for joining us. More than 5 decades after a Winnipeg father and chef was killed, police are now reviewing the case. It led to the wrongful murder conviction of 3 men. CBC's Caitlin Gowerluck has more on what goes into investigating a cold case.
That's awesome.
A moment of freedom, but the exoneration of Clarence Woodhouse, Alan Woodhouse, and Brian Anderson has raised a crucial question. Who killed Ting Fong Chan? He was a chef at Winnipeg's Beachcomber restaurant in 1973 and a father of 2. Lawyer James Lockyer advocates for the wrongfully convicted with Innocence Canada. He says it can be difficult to find the real killer after so long.
To say the trail is cold it doesn't quite get to it.
He points to the case of David Milgaard. He was exonerated after DNA evidence identified the true culprit nearly 30 years later. James Lockyer thinks it's unlikely there's DNA evidence in Chan's murder, but he says police do have something else: the names of other people identified as suspects at the time.
Because any other suspects that they identified back in 1973, they discounted because they had decided who had done the crime.
Retired Detective Andrew Mikołajewski saw that when he reviewed the 1981 killing of 16-year-old Barbara Stoppel, after Thomas Sofino was wrongfully convicted. There were missing notes and even evidence.
And that may be some of the disappointment that investigators in this case find.
It's been over 50 years since Chan was killed, so whoever did it could be dead. Lockyer says it's still worth trying to find who's responsible.
There's a societal interest in it too. And there's nothing Brian Anderson, Alan Woodhouse, and Clarence Woodhouse would like more.
Lockyer says Chan's family deserves to know too. Winnipeg police are reviewing the case but declined to comment. Caitlin Gowerluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
You could see inside the house.
Kelly Ryback lives in St. James. He says pending changes to the city's zoning rules, allowing fourplexes up to 4 stories within 800 meters of frequent transit, could affect the entire neighborhood.
If you look at rapid transit, 800 meters, for St. James, looking at Portage Avenue and Ness Avenue, that is almost all of St. James.
A developer has proposed building a 3-story multifamily complex on this lot on Parkview Street. Ryback says it gives a sense of the scale of buildings that could soon pop up all over the community.
So over here, right on Portage Avenue, is a 3-story apartment with a flat roof. So you can imagine the height of that, and then add 6 to 8 feet just to a 3-story.
City Council committed last year to making sweeping zoning changes to speed up housing construction. They did it to access millions in federal housing dollars. Among the commitments, allowing up to 4 stories on any lot near frequent transit without the need for a public hearing.
Where's the map?
Councillor Brian Mays wants the city to release a map showing exactly which areas would be included. Councillors received a draft version of the map showing much of the city covered by the proposed zoning change. Mays wants the final version.
We've been waiting 11 months. We were told it was a work in progress last November, and I was expecting it this summer. It's well past that. So this is going to potentially affect a lot of people.
Deputy Mayor Janice Luke says she supports the change and isn't worried that she hasn't seen a final draft of the map.
There'll be plenty of time. I know some councillors are stressed about this concept, but I think that, we have to let time unfold. We will get the map.
Mayor Scott Gillingham released a statement saying the Property and Planning Department is still working on the proposal. Public consultations are set to start in January, with a public hearing tentatively scheduled to take place here at City Hall in March. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba Public Insurance wants to hike rates next year, but some wonder if the increase they're looking for is too low. The CBC's Ian Fraze explains.
Getting behind the wheel with more expensive insurance. Manitoba's auto insurer is asking the independent body for a 3% rate hike next year. But is it enough? Peggy Barker worries it isn't.
We're concerned that it might be short-term gain for long-term pain. Just, putting off the inevitable.
This opinion comes from a perhaps unlikely source. Barker is with a group advocating for consumers. Do they really want auto insurance to cost more?
When that business is owned by the consumers, as it is in the case of MPI, it's really important that it be well managed and stable economically.
She's worried because some MPI staff don't believe the proposed 3% rate hike goes far enough. The actuaries, the people that do the math, said in the spring a more than 6% increase is needed to recover costs. The Crown Corporation lost $130 million last year due to the strike and a hailstorm that led to 15,000 claims. Yet MPI's head is standing behind the decision not to ask for a higher than 6% rate hike.
For us to be asking for a large increase next year did not deliver on our mandate of being affordable and predictable.
MPI Satvir Jatana says in the following months the corporation's financial picture improved. The backlog from the 10-week strike cleared, and it saved money by cutting management jobs. Jatana says MPI's actuaries now want a lower rate increase than more than 6%. While she wouldn't reveal the number,
we have minimized the gap.
MPI, though, is still asking for a 3% rate hike. The final say will be left to the Public Utilities Board. The hearing will last 3 weeks. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A vigil was held this weekend for a couple who died after an alleged arson last month. Community members say the building may have been deliberately targeted because it hosts a church. As Arturo Chang reports, they're looking for more protections for places of worship.
And now, what we are saying is we thank you, God.
A whole community, thanking God for being with them through the dark times, even if they cannot make sense of the loss.
When we came here, we live in a refugee. Okay, if days is like this, why not to die in my homeland?
Geda Gemechu and Zenabu Gula from Ethiopia spent over 2 decades as refugees in Kenya before coming to Canada. They were killed in a fire police says was deliberately set. They had been in the country for less than a year.
This is, the stairs to the rooms.
Pastor Johannes and Gita preached downstairs from where they lived. He says there had been 2 other arson attempts on the church.
So many churches are burning, just throughout Canada. So this kind of action needs to stop. And we would like, just to worship God without any fear.
Geda and Zanuba recently came to Canada with hope, but instead were met with horror.
BC MP Mark Dalton wants harsher penalties for arsonists targeting places of worship. His private member's bill proposes a minimum of 5 years for first-time offenders.
This is unacceptable.
The Ethiopian Society's Ali Said says the vigil sends one clear message. This will not be tolerated.
Many people are very disappointed and upset, and it's affected to the whole community. It's not only the Ethiopian community, the whole African community, and the whole Canadian, even in Manitoba.
The church is looking to relocate, but now is still a time to grieve. Arturo Chang, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Let's bring in weather specialist Riley Lachuk. And Riley, these feel like bonus days to be outside right now.
I really hope that you enjoyed the day today because boy, oh boy, do we have a change on the way as we get into the day on Tuesday. Have a look at some of these temperatures from the afternoon. Melita getting to 26 degrees this afternoon. Normally we should be at about 8-9 degrees for this time of the year. So yes, we're into those bonus summer days. 25 in Brandon, 20s to the Parkland region. -1 to northern Manitoba. So you can really see where that line is, where those temperatures were much warmer than seasonal and even a bit cooler than seasonal. And the trend is toward a much cooler than seasonal day and week ahead here. So you can see this ridge in the jet stream here really well defined, kept us nice and sunny today. I did mention things are changing. Clouds start to build in overnight tonight. Our high temperature tomorrow, 10 degrees first thing in the morning. We see some rain moving in first thing in the morning as well. And that temperature falls to 4 by the time we get to the late afternoon. A few showers yet to come tomorrow. We'll break down, we'll time out the rain and even a little bit of snow in our forecast, Brittany, when I come back.
Oh, snow.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
I guess.
I'm Emily Brass in Lac du Bonnet, where the RM and the town are working together towards community development, but it wasn't always that way. We'll hear how local governments are trying to overcome past divisions coming up on the CBC Winnipeg News.
Plus, how a proposed clinic could help prevent complications and improve the quality of life for people living with diabetes. More on that straight ahead. Stay with us. A proposed clinic for people with diabetes aims to give those living with the disease a place to have their eyes, feet, and kidneys screened all in one place at one time. The hope is it can help reduce the number of diabetes-related complications. Alana Cole explains.
So once we come into my office, I will ask them to have a seat, and I will shut the door, and I'll sit here with the person who has diabetes, and then we'll start our appointment this way.
Leanne Carrier is a nurse at the Uville Diabetes Center, working to help educate people about the disease and learn to manage it. The team here also wants to open a screening clinic where people with diabetes could have their feet, kidneys, and eyes screened under one roof at no cost. The aim, reducing diabetes-related complications like vision loss, kidney disease, and amputations.
Lots of people with diabetes who are currently experiencing these complications are doing so unnecessarily. If it's detected early and treated early, then you can really stop that progression.
Carrier hopes opening a screening clinic like this here in Winnipeg reduces barriers.
I would hope that having, the screening clinic can provide access to a lot more people who haven't been going through the screenings, and then preventing that, unnecessarily reduction in quality of life and improving their quality of life, making them feel better and healthier, and then just overall reducing the impact on the healthcare system.
Diabetes Canada recommends foot examinations for people with the disease at least once a year and more frequently for at-risk groups. Annual screening for kidneys and eye exams every 1 to 2 years, depending on the complications and diagnosis. Toni Tilston-Jones is the executive director at Uville. She says the clinic would prioritize equity-deserving populations.
My hope is that it reduces the number of folks that we see who are having lower limb amputations or toes amputated or really bad infections in their feet, folks who are losing their vision or, and their whole lives have to completely change, at least for a short period of time, that while they adapt to what's happening.
Tilston-Jones says they've brought the idea to the health minister's office. She hopes it's a step toward more conversations about the clinic. A statement from Minister Azaguara says, in part, the WRHA works directly with stakeholders on analyzing prospective projects. Alana Cole, CBC News, Winnipeg.
After decades of discord, the town of Lac Du Bonny and the surrounding municipality are finally teaming up to extend water and sewer lines into the greater area. The two councils hope the new infrastructure attracts more development after years of economic stagnation. Emily Brass traveled to the town to learn more.
If you haven't snowmobiled before, this is kind of the top level of snowmobiling.
This Lac Du Bonny showroom wouldn't be here if local politicians hadn't set aside their differences and started working together.
It's been beyond overwhelming and incredible.
All right, have a good one. Bye.
The dealership opened in February and says it's done brisk business ever since, but first it had to clear some hurdles.
We're actually on the RM side of Lac Du Bonny, on RM land. And that across the street, across the main highway into town, is town.
The issue? The town of Lac Du Bonny has water and sewer services. The rural municipality does not, and the business couldn't start up without it.
It put the town and the RM in a place where they had to work together.
The town's revamped water treatment plant opened in 2004 with help from the province. It was also meant to serve the surrounding area. 20 years later, that still hasn't happened. People in the RM have been living with boil water advisories and trucking in water for decades.
There was much less of a collaborative approach in respect to what we need to do to support and strengthen our community. And that's changed recently.
After years of rivalry and arguments over funding, the two governments are finally planning to run lines into the RM, bringing people clean water while bringing the town more revenue.
We recognize that, running our water plant at less than 20% capacity is probably not really particularly efficient.
The lack of water not only made life harder, it also stalled growth on both sides of the municipal border.
We need the town needs us.
Both governments say their long-standing disagreements led to stagnation.
There are some perceptions that, yes, there were personality conflicts.
Has that been holding Lac Du Bonny back then?
Yes. We've missed a lot of opportunities over the years because we haven't had the water and sewer infrastructure.
This RM councillor spearheaded a shared community development corporation in 2018 and says it fell apart due to differences in vision. Now, the RM and town are proudly partnering to build water lines and attract developers.
It's over the top exciting for me. It's a very, very positive thing for our region, for us to be moving in this direction. And it's long overdue.
The new alliance is already reaping rewards at Lake Life Power Sports.
Absolutely. We believe in the town, and we think that any further investment in it, there needs to be more.
The councils hope to get more pipes in the ground next year. Emily Brass, CBC News, Lac du Bonny, Manitoba.
Riley is back. And Riley, I was saying it felt like the last few days today included were like bonus days because they certainly don't feel like fall. And then you had to go and mention the word snow.
Yeah, not for Winnipeg, not for most of southern Manitoba, but places in the north, in the Thompson region, have seen some accumulating snow throughout the day today. Could see some of that into parts of western Manitoba as we get...
it's that time, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
The seasons are changing, and things are changing very quickly. I'm going to start with the upper level winds tonight because you can really see that defined jet stream on the map here, that river of air that is in the atmosphere and really what drives our weather really across the globe here. So you can really see that defined jet stream as it arches up with that ridge of high pressure that has kind of built in over the Dakotas, impacting us here in Manitoba. We've got another ridge that has really cleared things out through parts of the eastern parts of the continent, and some low pressure back to the west, which actually did bring some accumulating snow to the Alberta foothills, even some snow even as far east as Calgary through the day today. So you can see the cold front here with some of that snow through southern Alberta attached to that area of low pressure. As that moves through into the morning hours tomorrow, we see some rain moving into southern Manitoba, into western parts of the province through the overnight hours, into the early morning. Into the higher elevations, particularly around the Riding the Duck Mountains, we could see some of this as temperatures drop with this cold front transitioning into some wet snow first thing in the morning. That crosses into the Red River Valley as we get into the morning hours, so some rain through the morning commute for Winnipeg tomorrow and into northwestern Ontario as we get into the afternoon. This is more of an afternoon-evening event for northwestern Ontario. Behind that, mainly cloudy skies, maybe a couple more sprinkles yet to come through the afternoon hours, but by and large, we are looking at a pretty gray, a pretty wet day tomorrow. Wednesday's looking a lot sunnier, maybe some instability through far northern Manitoba along the Hudson Bay coast. Could pick up a couple more centimeters of snow as we get later into the week. In terms of rain, I'm saying a general 7 to 12 millimeters through the Red River Valley, Portage La Prairie and east. More like 5 millimeters through the western parts of the province, and even just a trace amount through the Parkland region. If we're looking at snow, which we'll take a look at right now, maybe a couple centimeters yet to come through much of northern Manitoba. Keep in mind, some of this will be melting as temperatures really warm up as we get into the next few days here. So 10 degrees, that's our high tomorrow. First thing in the morning, Brittany, falling to 4 by the afternoon, and then much more seasonal as we get later in the week. Your 7 days coming up.
Oh, I see a minus on the board there. Thank you, Riley. Well, we need to take a short break. More to come. New Israeli strikes in Lebanon have targeted a Hezbollah-linked financial institution, one with more than 30 locations. Israel and the U.S. have accused the institution of being a cover for the Iranian-backed militant group to fund its activities. This came as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken prepared for a new mission to the region aimed at ending the conflict. The CBC's Sasha Petrusek reports.
There was plenty of fighting across Lebanon as Israel pounded various sites that it says housed a bank that Hezbollah uses to fund its fighting, and also that Iran uses to help back Hezbollah, to funnel money into the country. This has been going on all night long, but it's also been hitting residential areas, especially in the suburbs of Beirut, because the bank itself is usually housed in the bottom of apartment buildings. Many average Lebanese also use the bank, so it's having a much broader impact. But Israel is making no apologies for it. It says it will continue this fight and wants to cut off the funds to Hezbollah as it fights Hezbollah on the ground in the south and from the air throughout Lebanon. There's been an attempt by the Americans to try to stop all of that, a renewed attempt which faltered way back a few weeks ago, months ago, but is now being picked up again. The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is expected here within the next day or so to make his case to Israel. And there's another envoy from the White House, Amos Hochstein, who is in Beirut trying to mediate talks between the Lebanese and Israel to try to come up with some sort of a ceasefire. This is what he had to say today.
I stood at this very podium, time after time, including as recently as August, and cautioned about the urgency. A resolution was possible, but it was rejected, and the situation has escalated out of control as we feared that it could.
There's been a report out of the U.S. that Israel has given its demands for any ceasefire to the Americans, and that would include, as far as Lebanon is concerned, that Israel be allowed to send its ground forces into Lebanon anytime to deal with Hezbollah, and that it have free reign of the entire airspace over Lebanon to go after Hezbollah just like it is doing now. That doesn't sound like the recipe for a ceasefire, but the Americans are pushing harder and harder to get one. Sasha Petrusek, CBC News in Jerusalem.
Former BC Premier Christy Clark has suggested she would be interested in replacing Justin Trudeau as Liberal leader if he stepped down. She told Radio-Canada she would, quote, like to be part of the discussion about the future direction of the Liberal Party and the country. She said she feels that polarized political views are standing in the way of solving various problems plaguing Canadians. This development comes ahead of a Liberal caucus meeting on Wednesday. In recent weeks, Trudeau has been facing mounting pressure from within the caucus to step aside. Clark served as Premier from 2011 to 2017. Americans go to the polls 2 weeks tomorrow, and most observers are predicting a tight race. So the presidential candidates are now campaigning in states that could go either way. Karen Pauls reports from Washington.
Former President Donald Trump toured storm damage in North Carolina, a swing state still digging out from Hurricane Helene.
Being here, that's quite a scene. Driving up, you see that kind of destruction. Actually incredible.
Catastrophic flooding and strong winds caused serious damage to power grids, water systems, and roadways. Recovery has been slow, and there's been misinformation and conspiracy theories saying the government is confiscating donations for hurricane survivors and diverting the funds to support migrants instead. Even as FEMA workers continue to face violent threats there, Trump criticized the government's emergency response.
Americans in this region felt helpless and abandoned and left behind by their government. And yet in North Carolina's hour of desperation, the American people answered the call, much more so than your federal government, unfortunately.
Vice President Kamala Harris is on a whirlwind tour of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. These states are supposed to be safe, part of what's known as the Blue Wall, but Trump flipped them in 2016.
Please welcome to the stage Vice President Kamala Harris.
Harris is taking part in discussions moderated by former Republican Representative Liz Cheney. Earlier, she appealed directly to conservatives and Republicans on the issue of women's reproductive rights.
I strongly believe one does not have to give up or abandon their own faith or beliefs to agree that not the government telling her what to do. If she chooses, she will consult with her priest, her pastor, her rabbi, her imam, but not the government. We've seen too much harm, real harm, happen to women and the people who love them around our country since that decision came down, including women who have died.
Appeals across party lines like that are important because new polls out today suggest the election is still too close to call. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Washington.
Some Rogers customers are going public with a complaint about the communications and media company. They're unhappy with fee hikes that were introduced after they signed 2-year contracts they thought came with a guaranteed price. The increase comes on the heels of last year's merger with Shaw, when Rogers promised to lower prices for customers. Erica Johnson reports.
This is the box. Kathy Cooper has 6 TV boxes that give her and her family access to cable and streaming apps. So she wasn't happy to learn that Rogers was upping the monthly price on all but one of them by $7 a piece.
It's not right. They are gouging people, and people are hurting today.
Cooper signed a 2-year Rogers contract for TV and internet in June, says she was guaranteed a price. But when she called to complain about her bills shooting up, a Rogers rep told her price guarantees do not apply to rental equipment like TV boxes.
All I get is the same over and over again. We have legal right to charge for our equipment. That's it.
Other customers tell Go Public they too felt misled when they signed 2-year contracts, thinking the monthly price was guaranteed, calling it a cash grab and shady.
It's obviously a bait and switch here. So you sign up, you lock in, and then suddenly you're kind of out of luck.
This tech policy expert says it's unfair for Rogers to quote one price and charge another.
I think consumers have a very reasonable expectation that the terms of that 2-year contract aren't going to change in that time frame.
Rogers declined an interview request. In a statement, a spokesperson repeated Rogers is allowed to change the monthly rate to rent equipment and said the company was making record investments in technology. Canada's Competition Bureau opposed Rogers buying Shaw last year and says since the merger, it's received a significant number of complaints about price increases, although Rogers says its TV and internet bundles have come down 5%.
We are currently experiencing higher than normal call volumes.
Meanwhile, Cooper sent back 2 TV boxes to cut costs and, after complaining a lot, got a $315 credit.
She did look into canceling her contract, but the penalty for that, $720. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Store owners have been pulling waffles out of freezers in response to a recall notice. Dozens of brands sold in Canada and the U.S. are affected. The manufacturer is Treehouse Foods, and they say the concern is listeria contamination. It can cause flu-like symptoms, but in some cases it can be fatal. The manufacturer says an issue was discovered during routine testing at an Ontario plant. The notice also says there were no reports of confirmed cases linked to the products. You can find a full list of affected products on the Treehouse Foods website. A group of top women's soccer players is protesting a new FIFA partnership. The Sports International governing body reached a deal with a Saudi oil company to sponsor World Cup tournaments. The players say that partnership sends the wrong message. The CBC's Sarah Levitt reports.
In this strongly worded open letter to FIFA's president, 106 international women's soccer players are saying this deal gives a middle finger to women's soccer. And now that middle finger is directed specifically at a deal that that soccer's governing body has made with an oil company called Saudi Aramco. It is majority owned by the government of Saudi Arabia. In the letter, the women say that it is unacceptable, that it goes against the values of soccer, particularly given Saudi Arabia's track record when it comes to human rights for women and, of course, for 2S LGBTQ plus people. They also have concerns about the environmental impact that this deal has, given that the company is an oil company.
I believe in the power of football and in sport in general to make the world a better place. But it's important that we stand up for those values, even if a sponsor offers a lot of money.
There are also Canadian signatories, including current Team Canada captain Jesse Fleming, as well as former Team Canada goaltender Aaron McLeod. And for McLeod, she says this is personal. She is openly gay.
Thinking of someone like myself, even traveling to go watch those games would kind of not be an option, you know.
FIFA, in the meantime, has said that it has a human rights policy that's strict, that inclusivity is key, and they've made major efforts in that direction. They also released this statement. FIFA values its partnership with Aramco and its many other commercial and rights partners. Sponsorship revenues generated by FIFA are reinvested back into the game at all levels, and investment in women's football continues to increase. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
Coming up, we'll introduce you to a female teacher who's making waves in a male-dominated world. We'll introduce you to her after the break. Stay with us. October is Women's History Month, a time to honor and celebrate notable women and their achievements. Throughout this month, we're going to introduce you to women who are breaking barriers. They may be at the top of their career field or helping ensure this province is a little bit better off. These are people we think you should know about. Irene Machado is a mechanic and automotive instructor at Louis Riel Arts and Technology Centre. CBC's Jim Agapito attended one of her classes to see her in action.
And this is the one that's the issue, and you're using that one for reference. Yeah. Okay. This is my 10th year teaching at the Louis Riel Arts and Technology Centre, and I went into industry. I did complete my Red Seal before going into education and getting my vocab to teach. But it's all mushrooms, so it's not going to pull through. We still have a majority of male students, but we have more and more female students enrolling and actually pursuing it as a career afterward, which is really encouraging. I've been out of the field for a while. I mean, I did start my apprenticeship journey over 20 years ago. So a lot has changed. It definitely required some resiliency, and definitely there was some adversity to overcome.
When I got accepted to come into ATC, I had no idea that there was going to be a woman teacher, but when I did find out, it did feel great, because knowing that there was going to be somebody else there that understands what it's like being a woman in the industry.
There's been a really positive change in industry, and it's becoming more mainstream, more accepting to see females in those roles. It's important just to have representation for any marginalized group, but especially having women in trades, I think that's just opening up doors for more talent. You can get just a bolt kit for that flange. I've never had anyone guess my profession or my career. So yeah, there's definitely students will come in and maybe they weren't expecting maybe what they get. But it's only a matter of a really short time before you build a rapport with students. You know what you did? What? Really well on your tests. Really? Yes. They start to see that, hey, you're an expert in your field. And so you can quickly gain some respect. I think it's really important that we start to shift our focus from maybe what we expect people to look like in certain professions, and maybe shift the focus more to people's abilities and their skill sets. Yeah! There you go, man. Go for it. What I try to do is just inspire all my students. Success! The ball joint's now officially out of the knuckle? Yeah. Whether they're coming from a marginalized group or whether they're, male, female. What I see is students really just benefit from seeing success stories and seeing diversity. And I think that hopefully, that all students are taking something from that.
She's helped me so much to learn and to be a successful mechanic, and for that, she's a great educator. Not any teacher can do that and can teach anyone. It takes a truly great educator to teach someone the right way, even when they struggle.
I feel so privileged to be teaching automotive, but it's exceptionally special just being a woman and being in my position to deliver that. It's just that much more impactful, I hope, and just helping to change that, sort of idea of what a particular profession looks like. Well, resistance. Yeah. Nice.
Just wondering.
Okay.
Thank you.
Riley's back now. And Riley, I love segments like that because I love getting to meet some of the incredible people that we have around our province.
And we'll meet another one on tomorrow's show.
Yes, very cool. I hope you got outside today, our viewers, if you had a chance. If not, you might want to scoot out because, man, oh man, it's changing.
It's changing. Expect a bit of a wet dog walk, at least for the morning part of tomorrow. Later in the day, not so much, but still kind of gloomy. We'll get into it right now here with your dog walking forecast for Tuesday. I've got a couple for you, Henry and Sandy. Thank you to Marley and Russell for sending these pictures in. A nice fall picture on a hay bale in a field. Talkback at cbc.ca is where you can keep sending your pictures. We're looking at a 10-degree start to tomorrow morning. This is our forecast high for the day tomorrow. Southwest winds starting gusting to 50, dropping to 4 by the afternoon, and 3 by the time we hit the evening hours tomorrow. And temperatures continue to slide for Winnipeg, at least below 0 as we head Tuesday night into Wednesday. And watch those northwest winds gusting to 50 as that low pressure system passes through the province as we get through the day on Tuesday. The winds will be something to contend with by the time we get to the lunch hour tomorrow. Northwest winds 30 gusting to 50 through the Red River Valley, more like 20 to 40 back to the west. We keep those winds as we get through into the evening hours, and even into Wednesday, we're looking at winds staying a bit on the gusty side, not as windy into Wednesday, but certainly I think you'll notice a bit of a breeze as we get into the midweek as well. So here's the cloud cover. It's already starting to see some clearing into northern Manitoba and the remnants of some of that snow moving onto the Hudson Bay shorelines through the overnight hours tonight. 4 to 6 degrees overnight through Westman as we see that rain moving through 11 overnight in Winnipeg and places to the east of the city. We'll see those temperatures really start to fall once we get into the day on Tuesday. Below 0 for much of northern Manitoba, -7 for Thompson, -4 for Gillam. Shamattawa also looking at a few lingering flurries into the morning. Otherwise, mainly cloudy skies to start the day. I think actually we'll see a bit more sunshine, particularly earlier in the day, but certainly a sun-cloud mix through the afternoon hours tomorrow for much of northern Manitoba. And staying in the single digits, below seasonal for this time of the year, waking up in southern Manitoba to this rainfall, well involved already into the west in places like Portage-la Prairie. So a wet day, and look what happens to these temperatures as we get into the day on Tuesday. Got some weather photos for you here as well. A few of them to show you. These are from Whiteshell Provincial Park. Donna shooting these ones here. A couple to show you. Misty Mantario Lake and this one here. The Hunter Moon, if you can see that over Big White Shell Lake. Talkback@cbc.ca is where you can send your fall pics.
I love getting all of the fall pictures in. We got that whole span of the Northern Lights photos that I had to live vicariously through all of you because I go to bed far too early. But we're getting into that spooky season.
We are, and that reminds us about Boo at the Zoo, back for some spooky fun. The zoo has been transformed, bringing spectacular and eerie sights and delights.
CBC's Shanalee Vidal stopped by the zoo to check out all the family-friendly frights.
Oh, you guys might be on TV later.
Good job. The best part is watching all those families come in, all those little kids who are dressed up for the occasion and ready to have an amazing time. That's the best. And seeing their reactions when they walk up to some of these displays, they're all the family photos and the selfies and the memories that are made. That's really what it's all about. I'm wearing an axolotl costume. It's an animal. It's really big on Minecraft right now. This is Harry Potter. Yeah, it's Harry Potter, and I'm supposed to be Hermione. I'm a ringmaster. For Halloween, I'm gonna be a dead ringmaster, though. We have fire artists, we have other performers, and they really liven up the whole experience. The costume characters that interact with the kids and grown-ups too, they really bring Boo at the Zoo alive. I think the rides go back to the original Boo at the Zoo that some of us remember when we were kids, and we brought them back to the new version that we brought back in 2021. Rides are always popular, and we have a few different options. We have some that are really geared toward little kids, little older kids, and even some that can be enjoyed by the adult.
Is there something that you love the most?
This ride?
You're pointing to the ride.
You just say the Sizzler ride. The Sizzler.
Oh, you love the Sizzler.
Yes.
Our favorite part is playing some games here and like some rides, just spending some quality time with him and just the decorations here and the spooky things.
Anyone can play. Anyone can win, maybe not win, maybe lose a little bit, but at the end of it, kids can go on their way out of Boo at the Zoo. They can get a little treat bag, which is, of course, their reward for all their very hard work. It's really geared to families with young children, and unlike some of the other events that are maybe a little more spookier. So for that reason, people come back year after year. It becomes a tradition, something they look forward to and can experience differently over the years as the kids grow up.
Let's go! He wanted to be the Incredibles, and then we made it happen.
She made it happen.
And then this guy reminds us a lot of Jack from The Incredibles, and so we just ran with it.
It's Boo at
the zoo today. Come if you want. Thank you, and good night!
Boo at the Zoo runs evenings through October 31st, but keep in mind, on Halloween night, it's adults only.
So it's a bit scarier. There's going to be a live band, there's going to be a costume contest, and of course, maybe a few adult beverages can be enjoyed as well.
I love it. I love the costumes. I'm ready for Halloween. I've got like the blood red nail polish. I don't have a costume yet, though.
I have to say, I've gone and done Weather Live there, especially as we get into the evening hours. Make sure you bundle up because even if the day like today was warm, it really starts to cool down once the sun gets gone.
Yes.
And it's certainly a lot more spooky.
Ooh.
Yes.
Still some time to get your tickets and head to that. Well, we need to take a very quick break. Still ahead, Riley will be back with our last check on weather, and we're going to talk about a Winnipeg Jet. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
So as we get into 7-day forecast, looking at Manitoba 511, some snow-covered highways reported in parts of Manitoba, the number 6 in particular in the Thompson area. As we've seen some of that snow moving through, we'll see our temperature in Winnipeg falling to 4 through the afternoon hours tomorrow, 9s and 10s for the rest of the work week, mainly sunny skies, and we're looking at temperatures staying above seasonal as we get into next week as well. Some cloud starts to build in as we get into Monday. A longtime Winnipeg Jets forward was back in town over the weekend.
Yesterday, Brian Little marked the end of his hockey career as a member of the team. CBC's Gavin Axelrod has more.
On the ice, he captivated fans with moments like these. And on Sunday, Brian Little suited up one more time for the only franchise he ever played for, this time to mark retirement. The Jets announced in September he'd sign a one-day contract to retire with the team.
I mean, in my heart, I never left. I was always a Jet, and this kind of made it official.
This November 2019 game was his last. After being hit by a slap shot from Jets teammate Nikolai Ehlers, he sustained a perforated eardrum. The injury was career-ending. Then his contract was traded to the Arizona Coyotes in 2022. Who are now the Utah Hockey Club.
I never really felt like I was part of it. I talked to the trainer there once a year for a physical or something on the phone.
Little says he had to think about his future and family when wrestling with the decision to step away from the game, ultimately putting them first. While he has no regrets about that choice, it wasn't easy.
You know, I was seeing so many people. I think I was just searching for someone to say it's okay and it's safe, and I could never really find that.
Outside the rink, Jets fans like Patricia Chaychuk were pumped about getting the chance to honor one of their favorites.
He was an unsung hero who did a lot in the community, behind the scenes without a lot of public fanfare, and I'm glad he came back to get the recognition he deserves to get.
I know his career ended in such a weird way, so it's really nice to have him have a moment with the fans, because he was a fan favorite.
Little goes down in Jets history, having played the second most games ever for the franchise. He also scored the team's first hat trick since its move from Atlanta. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
It was so nice getting to see him back in a Jets jersey, saying goodbye to hockey in his career right here in Winnipeg.
A nice send-off for one of the OGs
Yes.
from the Jets. Of course, he played with Atlanta before they moved up here, but very nice to see.
An amazing career. Congratulations to you. Well, we will be back here tomorrow night. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you again.
Stay dry.